Amachalokadipati sahampati Kasanjali Anadivaram Ayachasa Sandita Satta Parajataka Jatika Desetu Dhammam Anukam Bimam Pajam.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Uttam dhammam sangham namassa. So our first full day, and Jane must be relieved. First day is a lot of pressure, so seems very smooth, right?
There's been a few hiccups, but
okay.
Yeah, they've all been fixable.
Thank you for not telling me.
I just quickly.
That's the compassion of the organizer.
But I either call on Ming or I call on Bob,
and they sort it out.
They sort it out.
Let's see, Ming's in Singapore or Kale? Where?
Yeah.
Singapore? Yeah. Thank you, Ming. Thank you, Bob. Thank you, everyone. So this is very special that we can be together. For those of you who are on the internet, if you want to see where we are, go to Google Maps, type in Arn Prior, A-R-N-P-R-I-O-R. If you haven't done that already. And then go to a place called Galilee. There's two rivers there. One is the Ottawa River, one's the Madawaska. And the Ottawa River, where we are now, is what? I was guessing 3 kilometers, 4 kilometers wide there. Anyone? It's a good mile. Good, yeah. So it's a long, it looks more like a lake. Mm-hmm. And then the Ottawa River flows past Ottawa, which is an hour's drive from here. And then that goes all the way to Montreal. And then it enters the Great St. Lawrence. And then down to the Atlantic. And if you went left, you'd go to the Atlantic. If you went right, you'd go upriver to Lake Ontario and Toronto, my hometown. And then if you kept going, up, you can get to Lake Superior and visit Ajahn Viradhammo. Take you 6 years by canoe. But we're Canada is so gifted with the water. We're just so incredibly lucky. These beautiful water systems. And today, for those of you who are on the internet, today's been a perfect day, perfect temperature, warm but not hot. Now it's cool but not cold. There are no insects. So it's, for many Canadians, it's one of their favorite months. Colors are changing. Sometimes there's a bit of nostalgia in the air, yeah, that kind of thing. So that's us here. And we're meditating away furiously or quietly, or however one meditates. So what to talk about? No, it's been a filler. Whatever tradition you're in, whether it's secular or religious, whatever way you're developing yourself, obviously love is very important. Whatever you define love, if you don't have love in your life or in your practice, what's the point of it, right? And so we have all manner of books written since the Neanderthals, I think, about love. And so there's all kinds of ways of intellectually chopping it up. The obvious ways are loving kindness, compassion, joy, peace, generosity, forgiveness, gratitude, trust. There's so many ways we can talk about love. And if we don't have that, just cash in your chips, I think. Because a life of meditation, which is simply about control or self-analysis or something like that, it's not lived from the heart sometimes. One of the things I've talked with Venerable Siri a lot this past 2 years is devotion. And he comes from a very devotional culture and a very devotional family. And I never understood the intelligence of devotion, just how really brilliant it is, the practices that India does. And I interpreted it more from a kind of a Western standpoint. But then he told me, well, you do devotion all the time. What do you mean? Because I kept that, what is devotion? What are you guys doing? So we have this kind of lovely back and forth. And then he indicated, well, and think about my room. I've got Srirana Maharshi by my computer. And then I've got, what's Amma's name?
Amritananda. Amritananda?
No.
Anandamai.
Anandamai, yeah. I have her picture. I have, and I have Upasamento, and then I've got Ajahn Chah. I've got 5 Buddhas. Do I sound acquisitive? I've got my mom, several pictures of my mom and my dad. I've got one whole board of people, like groups of meditators that I've been with. And I just look at them. I say, oh, hello. And then we said that's what Bhakti is. And it's like connecting to something that you love and remembering it, and then connecting to that sense of love. And I'll just sit in my chair. Maybe that's just what old men do. I don't know. Maybe that's the problem. I'll just look at, like, picture my mom. Well, one thing I do say, in the garden out here, you've seen the vegetable garden?
Mm-hmm.
So my mom loved gardens. So what I do is I go, and then I say, Mom, look through my eyes and look at those carrots. It's great. It's just the greatest feeling. Now, the intellect might say, well, is your mom alive? I don't know. Okay, I know that. Is she inhabiting your mind? Is she hovering above you? Is she a deva? Who cares? Because the effect is just very, very good. And that's the idea of upaya, skillful means. Where you use skillful means to bring forth skillful states of mind. So I was looking at the tomatoes and nasturtiums, I think they're nasturtiums. I was just looking at the tomato plants. Boy, they look pathetic, except for the fruit. Interesting, isn't it? When you go to the grocery store, it's all nicely, there's this size, and then there's what the little one's called? Cherry tomatoes. And the cucumbers are all nice lime. And then you have the green apples and you have the red apples. But that's not nature. You go out there, and even though the gardeners are trying to set it up nice and evenly, nature's just messy. Right? It's just messy. And yeah, there's an order to it, and there's the fruit. And so, like, intellect can create these very clear lines. And much of, we've been talking about this a lot, much of Theravada, the way it was interpreted by scholars when it first came into the English language and German language, and scholars who were very Protestant, I think, in their values. And all that devotional part, which you find in Thailand and Sri Lanka and India, that you don't find that really, because you can't put that in a text that you translate from the Pali language. You can't put that in there. So culturally, I think what Theravada, I think we agreed to that, right? What Theravada inherited was a very Protestant kind of Buddhism, very utilitarian. So mindfulness is very utilitarian. And it's good. It's good. But then you go to Asia, you go to Thailand, Sri Lanka, there's an outpouring of devotion around their stupas, with their gurus, with their teachers, with the holy sites. If you've been to Bodh Gaya is just this kind of incredible cacophony of religious delight. All these different languages and different ways of bowing and different imagery. And if you're into tranquility, forget it. But if you're into joy and the expressions of devotion, it's just marvelous. It's just really, really marvelous. And so that part, how do you do it? Call it love, call it joy, call it devotion. How would you introduce that? I can't say how you would do that, but I think it's obviously important, right? Because you don't want this practice to be a practice. When you're just somehow doing my practice. I think there's something richer about the whole, it's more like the garden. Because life is messy. It's not sort of nicely packaged. And so the messiness of life is that not only is there love, there's also hatred. Right? There's also jealousy. There's also anguish. There's also saying stupid things at the wrong time, and losing the plot, and blaming someone for something you never did, and all the rest of it, and being in social situations you have no control, and they are maybe even immoral. And we could go on in that kind of vein. But internally, so socially, we do what we can, living the lives we live, and I think all of us do very well. But internally, the kind of uproar that the mind can bring up, and what kind of old emotional baggage that we might have from our culture, from our social upbringing, from some trauma we suffered. So all of that is also kind of very necessary part of the practice, necessary in the sense that it's necessary to deal with it. You can't just kind of disassociate from it as much as one would like to. And so that's then the question of going back to the question of love. Where is love there? Where is love in the midst of hatred? Is it like you just get rid of the hatred and then you do metta bhavana? Furiously. I think we've all tried that. It's a disaster, isn't it? Because it's repression. It's not. It doesn't work that way. Or we feel like all of you know, I suffered so much from social anxieties and fear, and what are you going to do with that? May all beings be well. Yeah, but I'm petrified of it. It's terrible. And so where does love fit into that? Is love, metta bhavana, just some kind of replacement therapy? Do you want to get rid of the other? No, it can't be. So what we need to remember is in the messiness of our inner world, we have kind of what we call resultant kamma or vipaka kamma. And here kamma or karma in Pali, karma in Sanskrit, is not some kind of past life thing. Like the way the word karma is used now, or kamma, it's used in a maybe fatalistic way or in a past lives way, but in a way that we can understand it right now is that if I habitually got angry at the neighbor 2 years ago, I was always angry at the neighbor, then I can move away from the neighborhood and move to another neighborhood. I'll find someone else to be angry at. So that's what we call vipaka kamma, resultant kamma. And that's we all have that. We were raised in families and we had strategies of surviving or whatever. And so we develop personalities unbeknownst to us. Really. And then suddenly we start reflecting, contemplating. We start to take possession or responsibility for our inner world by being more objective. And lo and behold, we still have feelings, still have anger. And that's very important to recognize that there's nothing wrong with that. But so it's not our fault. Like I like to say, it's not our fault, but it is our responsibility. And our responsibility in the sense of I don't take care of it, I'll be angry at the next neighbor and the next neighbor. And that's pretty obvious. So again, where does love come into that? And that's where I think that awareness practice is also some kind of loving practice in the sense of acceptance, not condoning. So Ajahn Sumedha uses the phrase, it's like this, and it all belongs. I know Bob doesn't like the word "it all belongs" because for him, sorry, maybe you, but he likes another word. So you kind of get the feeling of what Luang Por is saying is that it all belongs. It's natural. Is there anything unnatural about feeling jealous? Not really. Not really. It's not nice. It seems ridiculous sometimes. Is there anything unnatural about greed, hatred, and delusion? No, they're natural things. So anything that arises in consciousness is a part of nature. So in that sense, it all belongs, even the most horrible things. Now, living a moral life, we take responsibility both by practicing right action and right speech, right livelihood. But then how do we? What about this inner churning that comes up? Well, I see it more like a purification is not a good word. Would be a better word. Okay, for now, purification. When I get a better word, I'll tell you. Words are like that, aren't they? So again, my experience of like coming into monasticism. First of all, I was very fierce, and I really tried to get enlightened overnight. For some reason, that didn't work. And then, as my control mechanisms no longer had the belief, I didn't believe in them anymore, and it just been alone. You can only do monastic life for so long under the stress of control. Then things started to come up, as we all know, rage and anger, things like that. And I would do a lot of walking meditation, then fear, and then fear, and then fear, and fear. And then I saw that the real solution to fear was loving kindness to the emotion of fear. And it's pretty obvious. But when I'm trying to understand the fear, it wasn't so obvious. And that's ignorance. Even though you can read about someone else's predicament and understand it, you have to understand your own predicament and why your mind gets caught in these ways. So then I saw that the way I hadn't been taught that. I saw that, the way that loving kindness is taught as a kind of formula, I saw that that seems more like prayer to me rather than bhavana, which is not wrong. And certainly we do it in the monastery. We dedicate merit, and people phone us up and say, someone's died, could you do some chanting for them? So we do that because it's beautiful. It's just beautiful to do. How efficacious it is doesn't matter to me. It's just beautiful to do. But as bhavana, as meditation, as development, to me it seems what metta bhavana is about stream of consciousness rather than prayer. So if in stream of consciousness you are putting in fear of fear or aversion to fear, the result tomorrow will be more fear and more aversion to fear, obviously, because that's cause and effect, cause and effect. But if I put it into the mix as fear rises, may I be free from fear. All beings who feel fear feel this way. Fear is suffering. I'm suffering. Suffering feels this way. Come on in, suffering. There's the trick. Come on in. Have a cup of tea. Stay a while. Stay longer. Yeah, I haven't seen you for like 2 days. Stay for a week. You don't do that, do you? You do the other. Oh God, you're back again. I thought I worked that one out. Oh no, gosh, I see my therapist again, or whatever. And yeah, you can see that if the attitude is, oh no, there it is again, that's not love. It's fear, or aversion to fear, or judgment of fear, or analysis of fear, but it's not acceptance. So awareness then has to have that sense of this including. And so my own experience was that for many years, I just had to experience a lot of anxiety. Many years. And a lot of people I know don't have that. They have different problems and situations, but it was very real in the way it came up emotionally, but it made no sense socially. It's just totally absurd. Ridiculous. Everyone liked me. I'm a fairly likable guy, and I knew I'd get fed. Logically, I knew I would not get thrown out of the monastery, and so on and so forth. Emotions are not logical. They don't fit the pattern. They're more like the garden. You can't. You just don't fit. So the elegant, I think this practice of awareness is very elegant because it's so simple. Like fear is very complex. Social anxiety is very complex, the interplay of people. But the sense of open-hearted acceptance is the most simple thing. So that to me would be love in a way which wasn't romantic love or not even emotional. So there's that, you ask yourself when you practice, whatever word to use, if you use mindfulness or awareness, is that a component in it? Is that a deliberate component? Does that kind of make sense? So there's that. So for me, when I say like that, there's this sound, like the coolness of the breeze is in awareness, or the sound of the motor in the background is in awareness. That's for me creating space, and then it all belongs, or acceptance is like loving kindness. But it's not like hugely emotional. It's not like when I look at the pumpkins with my mom's eyes or whatever, and that's emotional. That's just lovely. So there's a whole tone to that. So I can do that too. I can bring more tone into the heart and have a heartfelt experience. And so the way I was talking about that this morning, that's the practice I always teach, where I just get the connection to loving kindness by remembering a person. It's so simple, isn't it? You remember someone and just the memory, oh yeah, there it is. And if you continually stimulate, I find, this chakra and make that a very real part of your practice, just stimulate it by looking at the pumpkins through your mom's eyes, or remembering a grandchild or whatever, then you start to, the person themselves is important, but it's not about a narrative about the person. So let's say if you have someone in your family that you love and you bring their image up into mind, you start worrying about them, that's not metta bhavana, that's worry. And you're not going to heal it that way. So it's not like, okay, Charlie's having a hard time. Charlie, may you be well, may you be well, may you be well. Well, maybe it's efficacious, but that's not what we mean by metta bhavana. That's usually just worry and concern. Worry and concern can be acted on. You can have compassion and act on it, but metta bhavana is going to the place in your heart, I think, triggered by memory, but not narrative memory. I would say affect, is that the word? Mm-hmm. Affective memory, like kind of emotional memory. We have that, don't we? Memories have that power. And then if one does that, it's very easy to go there. And then you just, okay, I'll just rest there. And I find that this is more intelligent than that. I don't know. My brain is always lying to me. I don't know you. It's like, I don't trust you. Not today. But I trust this. There's something about this part that is very intelligent in a way which I can't intuitive, I suppose. Would that be the way to describe it? So that I find to be very rewarding and it's very sustaining, because it is a state of it's a positive state of mind, and and as you develop that, you want to meditate more. It's really, really neat to do, as opposed to kind of, I've really got to work this retreat. I've got this 7 days, I'm really going to work at it. I guess we all used to do that. Do we still do that? I used to do that. It was 7 days. I've got to do this determination and that determination. And I just usually, I could get some tranquility, but I just felt exhausted at the end of it. But that's not what we're doing. Awakening isn't exhaustion, is it? There's a kind of beauty to it. So I would ask you then, so how do you bring that quality of heart to, first of all, you can engage the quality of heart with someone that you love. But then what does that mean in the broader sense when what comes up is garbage or really rough or really, really unpleasant? What would that mean? So stream of consciousness is constantly being enhanced with loving kindness through the language I use to myself. Like, so what kind of language do you use around your own efforts, around your own mistakes? We all make mistakes. Around your own, messiness of a Zoom meeting, say. You're at a Zoom meeting and you just muck it up totally. You kind of, God, I said that. I get that sometimes. I'll say a joke. I say, oh, that was on Zoom. That's recorded. It's going to be on the front page of the New York Times. That's where my mind goes. But then that's just normal, isn't it? It's normal life. And what happens there? Is it an entry into loving kindness or self-flagellation? Usually it's self-flagellation, because our lives are defined through the use of critique, criticism, and analysis, and judgment are very important in our lives. And loving kindness isn't a judgment. It's open to everything. So then in our inner attentiveness to how the kind of consequent responses to some seeming mistake, we have to be very attentive to the language. And if the language if the language of your inner world is loaded with a sense of self, that's a lie. And the stronger the sense of self, it's even a bigger lie. And that's how it works, isn't it? I've got to tell that person. I've just got to tell them. I've got to tell them that. And you tell them, oh, I told them. And you feel horrible. Or because you're coming from anger or whatever. Or I am a terrible person. I shouldn't have done that. I shouldn't have done that. That loud voice of self, don't believe that, because that's just delusion. So I often like to talk difference between guilt and remorse. I often mention that. Remorse, hiriyottapa, in Pali is a sense of conscience and a sense of like when I say something that obviously hurts someone, not just because I perceive it in some kind of anxious way, but I obviously say something which maybe like I make a joke about them, but the joke is in some way derogatory. And I see their face and I realize, oh, you weren't coming from a good place. That was not a good idea. That's a healthy remorse, isn't it? Because that's actually compassion. I'm feeling now the consequences of my speech were not kind, and the person was hurt. And so hiriyottapa is a wholesome factor. So there's conscience, but there's also the fear of doing that in the future, and that's a good kind of fear. That if I do that again, not only will that person not be my friend, but I'll just exacerbate that very habit. So hiriyottapa has a sense of healthy fear. Like if you walk to the edge of a cliff and the cliff is saying, jump, and you're afraid of jumping, that's a good fear. That's a good fear, isn't it? That's a healthy fear. So we have that morally too. So the sense of conscience, and that's what the hiriyottapa is. And it's a very important, wholesome fact. I think in Thai monasteries, if I have it correct, you have quite often these two guardian titans, massive guy, 10 foot tall, and they look really fierce warriors, hiri and ottapa. Conscience and fear of wrong consequences. Now you can see someone who doesn't have hiriyottapa is a monster, is a sociopath. So that's wholesome. But guilt, well, what's guilt? Guilt is self-hatred. And guilt is not skillful because guilt is a form of egotistical self-hatred. And you can see that if I hurt this person with my speech, I feel the hiriyottapa, and then because of habit, I walk away and I say, oh, you idiot, you're horrible, you're horrible, you're horrible. Then what's going to happen? That anger is going to come out to the next person. Because why? In stream of consciousness, I'm laying down more anger. So it doesn't matter if I hate myself or I hate, even like hating politicians. There used to be a politician south of the border. I won't go any further. And there was a lot of hatred generated there. And you could say it's justified, but what does that do to the mind? You're responsible, right? So even though everyone would say you're darn right, still hatred begets hatred. Which doesn't mean that you're kind of smarmy about it. Like you can be a student, say, no, this is not moral, this is not right, this is cruel or whatever. And you can be streetwise in that way, but like believing in the avenues of hatred is still hatred. So if you're looking at everything as stream of consciousness rather than just individuals and that kind of people-oriented things, then you start to think, well, I think I should put more loving kindness into stream of consciousness because that's going to be more profitable for myself and others. And then you become very cautious about even like justified hatred, and we say it's still hatred. Which doesn't mean that one can't say, no, that's wrong, you can't do that. We can have laws and so on. So we have this whole like residential school thing, right? This horrible, horrible, horrible thing. That's wrong. It's wrong. But to hate, to put more hatred in the world, how is that going to help? And yet, if someone hates and has been in that situation, we don't blame them. Because you can understand that. So it's not a matter of blaming, it's a matter of lifting them up in some kind of a way. Hearing them, hearing their pain, as we say. So when we talk about Buddhism, sometimes we talk about the social component, but then quite often we talk about when we talk about like 5 khandhas, the 5 aggregates, or mind-body experience, or the 6 ayatana, and different ways of talking about it. I like to just talk about stream of consciousness. In a stream of consciousness, you have bodily feelings, you have sights, sounds, tastes, smells, you have mental images, you have memories, and that's just a stream of events going on. And then you have awareness. And that's the really interesting part. So awareness is the refuge. It's also the doorway. And just to go back to this theme, is awareness just functional attention? No, awareness, I think, is imbued with wisdom, intuition, and I would think this larger sense of what loving kindness is, this larger sense of acceptance. So when there's acceptance, then you can act. It's not like saying this is right or wrong. You can act because you understand that if there's not acceptance, then the reaction won't give a good result. So, yeah, I think that should cover it.
Andamayam Dhammo Vadakatha Sadhukarang Dadhamase Sadhu Sadhu Sadhu.
Our Siri has the most resonant voice. I don't feel jealous. I remember when. But they'd sometimes chant the 28 Buddhas 108 times.
Oh,
That's
typical.
so on the 28 Buddhas. That takes what, 2 hours?
108.
Yeah, 108 times. How do I-
Itipiso?
Yeah.
About, yes, about 2 hours.
So the chant, when we do the Zoom sessions, we chant the Itipiso. Some of the younger monks, not the older monks, will chant that 108 times. That's a devotional practice. Just quite fun. Let's finish with, did we get that message out about the page 60?
Yes, well, Ming is going to put it on the screen for, I'm not sure if she got it.
Well, let's do it. Give her a message for tomorrow morning. All right. And we'll just do the normal.
Oh, she's already got it.
She's out of, oh, great. Is that me?
Yes.
Thanks, Ming. So that's page 40. Page 42. Do the English, 43. Page 43. Thank you, Ming. And the way these diacritical marks go is if there's a little sign above a vowel or a consonant, it's a rising tone. Below is a falling tone, and no mark is a middle tone. But I always forget that. I'm by pervading one quarter, with a heart imbued with loving kindness. Likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with loving kindness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a heart imbued with compassion, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with compassion, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a heart imbued with gladness, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with gladness, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. I will abide, pervading one quarter, with a heart imbued with equanimity, likewise the second, likewise the third, likewise the fourth, so above and below, around and everywhere, and to all as to myself. I will abide, pervading the all-encompassing world, with a heart imbued with equanimity, abundant, exalted, immeasurable, without hostility and without ill will. And the closing homage on 18. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Bhagava
Buddhang Bhagavantang Abhivademi.
Swakato
Bhagavata Dhammo Dhammamasami.
Upakipano
Bhagavato Samakrasangho Sammakamami.
Good night, everyone in internet land.